Did you get addicted to the football violence?
Loved it, absolutely loved it. It was a drug. That was the buzz, because you didn't know whether you was going to get back in one piece.
The fighting broke out despite a peace plea from Spurs officials.
That was my brother. The camaraderie, the loyalty. We got a hell of a lot of attention. The trouble is, it becomes your identity. You almost go, is that me? Yeah. Is that how the world sees me? So us as football blokes, through the right-wing politics, you didn't have to be militant to be a member of UDA. We went all around the country. We got rid of people who we just thought was a waste of time. Clearly it drew attention to us. I had warnings. I had two fellas outside. When they approached me, that was military intelligence. I always say I like to think I acted responsibly, because I had the power to have people killed. You know, I had the power to have people kneecapped.
Have you ever, in the last 10 years, had the fear of losing your life? Frank, welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you, Dodge. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, mate. Looking forward to this one. Let's roll all the way back. Where did you grow up, and how did you end up getting banged up for gun running?
Well, I grew up in Camden, or what you would know as Camden. But when I was growing up, it was St Pancras, the borough of St Pancras. And what they did was they formed three different boroughs. There was Holborn, Hampstead, and St Pancras was in the middle. And of the three, St Pancras was very much the poor, rough, working class area. But from the 1st of April 1965, they decided to merge it all, the three boroughs, and it became Camden. So the London Borough of Camden is a relatively new borough. So I was born in Kentish Town, which came under St Pancras. You had three towns. You had Kentish Town, Camden Town, and Somers Town. All equally as rough as each other. But yeah, you know, good grounding in other ways. You know, we weren't particularly well off, but that was most of the community.
And what was life like for you at school?
Well, I can almost feel my wife's eyes bearing down on me now when you've asked that question, because we both know the answer to it. If I'd have stayed on at school, I would have done okay, because I was always told I was a bright kid. And although, when you go to secondary school, there's other temptations, I know. But generally speaking, I knew the first couple of years I was smart. I progressed through the school. But then, as I say, you get to about 14, you start knocking about with other kids, you know, where they knock about. You start getting into fights. You start getting into trouble. And if I'm honest, I left school way too early. You could leave at 15 in 1972. It was the last year you could officially leave at 15. But I'd left by the time I was 14 because the family wasn't particularly well off. There's times I was going to school with holes in my shoes. You know, kids today won't believe that. In 1970, 71, you was going to school with holes in your shoes. But it was the truth. And although we'd always got by paper rounds, pulling the stalls out down the market, we'd done things like when I was pulling down the old houses, we'd go in and get the old furniture and books and ornaments and take them down the market and sell them. Then we discovered lead, copper, brass, so we'd take that down to scrap merchants. But it wasn't enough it wasn't a full-time job.
Yeah.
And eventually I realised I needed to leave. And I got a job in a butcher's, Dewhurst, in Camden High Street. And my mother come down to school one night for an open evening, and she sat in front of a teacher, and he said, "Yes, madam, how can I help you?" And she said, "I'm Frankie's mum." And he went, "Frankie who?" And she said, "Frankie Portinari." He said, "I've never met your son." And as she went round the school, other teachers said, bless her, she didn't know I'd left. Yeah. She didn't know I'd left. So when I got home, when she got home, she wasn't too happy. And I said to her, "Mum, where do you think you're getting all them chops from?" The chickens, you know. I worked at Dewhurst in Camden High Street. So, yeah, I'd learned how to earn money. I thought I was a man, you know, 14, 15. I thought I was a man. I'm out working. You know, you promise your girlfriend the world, didn't you? You know, you're earning about £8 and you're promising her the world. But yeah, up to this day, I know it was wrong to have left.
And what was your movements as you're getting like older in your 17, 18, 19 onwards? And what was your movements also getting involved with Tottenham?
Well, where we lived, you take into account the late 60s, early 70s, there wasn't as much traffic on the roads. So we played football in the street. You played, your goals were the gable walls. And you stayed out till it got dark, basically. Your parents knew where you were. So we was football mad, absolutely football mad. In my street, it was mainly Tottenham. And the reason for that was they'd done the double in 60, 61. They won the FA Cup at 62, the Cup Winners' Cup 63, FA Cup again. So most people's dads, uncles, older brothers were mainly Tottenham. And then eventually you get to go, which, again, you need money to do it. And I had a little coal ram with my uncle, not lifting them big bags of coal. I used to have just the little 28-pound bags of coke and coal. And we used to supply the hardware shops. So I'd get money from that. That meant I could go to football. And, that's when your heroes, wasn't it? You saw people you didn't... There wasn't so much football on the telly, was there, in those days?
Like 3 or 4 channels, 3 channels.
Well, that was it. So if you wanted to see your heroes, you had to make the effort. And in those days, the crowds were massive, absolutely massive. And I always say, if you played somewhere like Manchester United or Liverpool or Newcastle, you were lucky to get in your own stadium sometimes. But yeah, that's when it got. I got quite fanatical, for want of a better way of putting it. And even in secondary school, when I was 14, I went to my first away game, which was up in Manchester, Main Road.
I used to love Main Road.
And I didn't, so we got beat 4-0. And
you have to walk through Moss Side as well, didn't you?
Well, I got chased after the game as 10 stone 7 kid getting chased. They was after my scarf, and I wore it to school every day. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to school Monday without this scarf, So that toughened me up a little bit, if I'm honest. And then when I was probably 15, 16, I was up in Stoke, and you go with the bigger fellas, didn't you? And well, some of them fellas might have been big, but they had no bottle.
Yeah.
And I suddenly was quite isolated with a very small group of fellas. And it just was a case of run or stand. And I thought to myself, well, sometimes you can run, get tripped up, and you're in more trouble than if you stood. So I stood. And then, of course, the following week, the home game, some fellas went, hello, mate, you all right? See you up in Stoke last week. Fair play to you. So that's the start of the journey in a way, because you're suddenly getting a little bit of recognition.
Did you enjoy that?
If I'm honest, I loved it.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it because I didn't have any brothers.
Yeah.
That was my brotherhood, if you like. The camaraderie, the loyalty. You kind of had you learned over, people would follow you. You learnt that people would follow you. If you're going to Newcastle on a Wednesday night, people start, I can't make it, I can't get off work, I can't do this, I can't do that. If they know a certain hardcore are going, they'll make more of an effort to go. So if I'm honest, it became a bit of a pressure. It became, well, I've got to go. I have to go.
An addiction as well.
Yeah, I have. Yeah. Well, I learnt. Well, we'll talk about that later on because most of my story boils down to one form of addiction or other. That's for sure.
Yeah. Did you get addicted to the football violence? Did you get addicted to going away to Stoke and going to Upton Park?
Yeah.
The away days, the days we all remember, right?
Home games were okay.
Yeah.
But no, the away ones,
Agreed.
because that was the buzz, because you didn't know whether you was going to get back in one piece. And you started to identify who was a face and who wasn't a face. I mean, I'm 66 now. I still talk to blokes who are in their 70s.
Yeah.
Because when I was following them when I was 16.
Yeah.
And they were the older blokes.
What were the firm called in Tottenham back in the day?
Well, it was the end of the state. It was that end of the ground you stood, wasn't it? It was the Park Lane.
Yeah.
So they were just the Park Lane end.
Okay.
The same as Chelsea would have been the Shed, and
Yeah.
obviously West Ham, you had your North Bank,
Yeah.
Chicken Run, and
Yeah.
so it was more where you stood in those days. All the other fancy firm names came along afterwards.
Later in the 80s,
We,
and
just,
yeah.
we weren't called firms then. We were just a gang or a mob, wasn't
Yeah.
it? It wasn't quite the same,
Yeah.
you know.
So tell me your day-to-day. What was your day-to-day at that time when you're going to footy, saving up, earning money? And what was happening in your 20s?
Well, it would have been, football was twice a week, wasn't it, for a
Yeah.
start? It was every Wednesday. So as soon as Wednesday was over, you was already started talking about Saturday. I also got the bug for Europe as well. And that would have been 70. Whenever Argentina won the World Cup
Yeah.
and we signed our D-list and Ricky Villa.
Yeah.
And I was in a pub in Somers Town, and my mate Bill said to me, it was a Sunday night, and he said, what are you doing tomorrow night, Frank? I said, probably the same as I'm doing now, Bill, standing next to you and having a pint. He said, oh no, let's go to Belgium.
Yeah.
Right? I never even been out of England.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Scotland.
Yeah.
And I said, how do you mean? He said, I think we should go over there and give them a welcome, give the Argentinian boys a welcome. I said, Bill, I never got a passport. But you could buy, I think you're old enough to remember this, you could buy a yearly passport. It was a bit of cardboard.
Right.
And you put your photo on it and they stamped it. It lasted for a year. So we talked a few other people into coming as well. And we got the old disco boat over to Antwerp. We played Royal Antwerp. And that definitely gave me the bug then. That definitely. And I've been all over Europe since then. Pre-season friendlies, all sorts.
So you followed them full
Oh,
on,
proper.
have you?
Proper. My poor wife was a proper widow, this football widow, that's for sure, bless her. and even that game, we played Royal Antwerp and I thought we was coming back. And my mate said, no, they're playing in Holland a couple of days' time. They're playing on the Dutch-German border, a little town called Venlo. So I stayed out there another couple of days, Didn't have mobiles in them days.
Did you?
Couldn't phone the wife then, could you?
The old 10p in the
wife
bank.
then.
That's the perfect excuse, isn't it?
Yeah.
What was it like in London at the time? Who were the hardest firm do you think that you were up against in London?
I've always said it. I've always been totally honest about it. I've always said West Ham. I've always said West Ham. I think for many, many years there was definitely there was a degree of psychology. You could be on the train and everyone would be talking very brave, and you got out at East Ham or you got out at Upton Park, and you sort of looked over your shoulder and thought, "Hold on, I'm sure there was more of us than this." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, mate.
I've seen it so many times.
Yeah, same.
And it did take one occasion where I think we gave a fair account of ourselves, and then after that, I'd always say 50-50.
Yeah.
But for a long, long time, say I'm 66, so I can remember the old Mile End mob.
Yeah.
They were men to me.
Yeah.
I was a teenager. They were grown men. So when they walked in, you kind of went...
The Bill Gardners.
Yeah, and the banter and all that, all that sort of mob, So when you're a 16, 17-year-old kid, you ain't competing with that. And we weren't very organised at Tottenham. We didn't seem to be very organised at all. And that's the thing that everyone gives West Ham credit for. They always seem to be organised. But it was similar with us and Arsenal though. For years we had it over Arsenal. We'd always be up in the North Bank. I got nicked up there before now. We always had it over them. And then that changed. There was a period in the 80s that changed. There was a period in the 90s because we got complacent. And there was another generation coming through. And we were suddenly the older fellas who thought, you'd be standing in the pub and they go, Arsenal's coming up the high road, and you go, yeah, all right. Well, like last year.
Yeah.
So you pick your pint up, you take no notice.
Yeah.
And when you come out of the pub, you find out they've taken liberties outside.
Yeah.
So I think every dog has its day, so to speak. But I think anyone in London, I think London have had their day.
How was it as a Tottenham fan going to Millwall away?
I went there Boxing Day,
Yeah.
so that was when we was in the second division. I don't know if it was World in Action or Panorama that did a programme leading up to it. So we had little skirmishes with them on the underground. And it was all going, you know, when you come to Bandit Country and all this, and, you know, that would be at Euston or King's Cross or somewhere. On the day, they made it a 12 o'clock kickoff, and I'd been to a Christmas party the night before, and I left at 5 o'clock. Everyone's going the next day, right? 8 o'clock, my mate Bill comes knocking on the door, and I mean a knock on the door, the knocker. And I'm half pissed. You know, I've done a bottling up of Captain Morgan's rum. And I went, Bill, you've got to be joking, mate, ain't you? He said, come on, we've got to go. He says, I've got the Works van. He's nicked the Works van. And on the back of it, there were shovels, pickaxes, all kinds of tools. I said, what's the plan, Bill? He said, we're going to drive down Old Kent Road. He said, we're going to attack the Canterbury Arms. I said, well, where's everyone else? It was us two. Seriously.
Was it?
It was us two. And in the end, we knew that other people were going to be down at Old Street, Oxton, Bethnal Green. We picked a few more up. But listen, we drove too near London Bridge and the old Bill tumbled us. But that was, I'd say that was the maddest day I've ever had at football in this country. That was the maddest day I've seen a fella put a screwdriver through a fella's cheek. There was wooden fencing was being used. People hitting each other with it, throwing at each other. And then even some railings, metal railings, throwing them like spears. And I thought, fuck this. You know, again, I say, and I know some Millwall fellas, and they give us credit where it's due. And we've been over there a few times since.
And was that pre-game or after game or both?
That was after the game.
After.
That was, yeah, the old boy had it pretty much wrapped up before the game. But I've never seen so many blokes wearing suits, because they'd all been to Christmas parties the night before, you know. Just left the party and thought, fuck it, we're going to go to Millwall.
What was that feeling like being a Tottenham fan, getting out Upton Park and walking down Green Street with all the old Bill around you, knowing that the West Ham fans were on the other side of the road? Because it's quite tight round there, right, before you get into the ground.
Have you seen the footage where there was a documentary and one of the West Ham fellas says, all the mugs are in the middle. You've got all the boys are at the front, he said. Well, I was in the middle. I was quite offended by that. But my theory was, if there was on the other side of the road, you could break out the middle. You couldn't break through the front. Yeah. But you can break out through the middle. And I actually saw myself on the telly, because a cop had come up with a police dog, like, get me back on the pavement. Yeah, I mean, there was some. I think it depends how old you was at the time. As I said, as a teenager, it was very daunting. Yeah, very daunting. Once you got in your 20s and
feel all right.
It was a bit different than when you proved yourself, and you couldn't lose face in front of your mates. So that was a big thing as well.
Are there any other firms around the country you look at and it springs to mind? You go straight away. You think Middlesbrough, lunatic
tough
fans,
firm.
or Stoke City, tough firm.
Yeah, Middlesbrough. Yeah,
Cardiff. What name? Give me some club names that spring to mind out of London.
Well, I think you've always got to say Man United, because there were so many of the buggers. Yeah. I mean, thousands of them, weren't there? Yeah. So I always say, if you landed on a fucking desert island, the first person you'd meet was a Man United fan, because they're everywhere, aren't they? Yeah. So you'd have to give them credit, and we had some mad battles with them down at Euston Station, especially the Cockney Reds. So when all the Mancs had gone back, were on their coaches and going all around the country, you'd still have the London ones there. You'd still have the Cockney Reds, and we had some, mad tear-ups with them. I think there's almost too many to mention. Because I've been to Cardiff in the 70s when they was painting their faces like war paint, blue and white. And one of our top fellas, we had our own coach, and one of our top fellas got up the coach. The minute he got up the coach, someone punched him straight on the nose. You ain't expecting it, are you? You're thinking, hold on, he's one of our top boys. Yeah. So that was I think any working class region, anywhere there's a port, any industrial city or town. So you look at the Midlands, look at the Black Country. Yeah. They're tough. They're tough fellas. They've worked in steelworks. They've worked in
Leicester.
They're tough fellas. Oh, we were always cocky because we're Londoners, and we always think we're the bollocks. Yeah. And you get away with that to a certain degree. If you've got that amount of front, there might be 10 of you and 30 of them, and you can see they're wary of you. Yeah. They're not quite sure. Yeah. But then over the years I think they've all proved themselves to some degree.
How many times have you been nicked at football?
I got nicked twice in one day. I didn't get charged.
How'd you get nicked?
We played Arsenal. Yeah. And they all come up the high road. So that would have been in the 70s. And as they turned the corner, it all kicked off, basically all kicked off. I got taken to Tottenham police station, and I was let out after the game, and I didn't know the score. And I said to the fella, "Hey mate, what's the score?" He said, "We got beat 5-0. Someone at the run got nicked again. And the copper, different copper obviously, but I came in, it was the same desk sergeant. And we were like this, and he went, "Here, I've had you once today already, haven't I?" said, "Yeah mate, you have as it happens." And fair play, he put me in a cell. And he let it all calm down. He went, "Listen," he said, "go on, you're in enough trouble as it is." And I remember it was £25 fine. Lordship Magistrates Court, it was £25 fine. It did get more expensive. I got nicked at West Brom. That was £200.
What for?
That was fighting. That was fighting, yeah. And I got nicked up over Arsenal. That was before the game in the North Bank. That was, what did I get for that? I got a month's imprisonment, suspended for a year, and I've got £100 fine. And I remember the judge saying to me, "How do you intend paying?" I said, "I'm a little bit short at the moment. Gubby went 28 days. And I wanted to say, "Why'd you fucking ask him? What did you bother asking for then? If you know, you got the answer." But I was quite lucky that day because it was my birthday. I had no one representing me, and I was talking to someone else's brief. And I was putting it on. I'm saying, "Oh, my girls are at home baking me a cake." And he went, "I'll have a chat with the judge." So he did, in fairness to him. So I'm on this suspension. If I get nicked now, I'm definitely going away for a month, that's for sure. And not long afterwards, I got nicked up in Liverpool. So, well, fuck that, I'm away, and I was banged to rights. There was no doubt about that. But
how old roughly were you at your peak in the football violence? Or did it go on? What did it span from what age to what age till you actually calmed down?
30s, partly 40s. No, not so much 40. Yeah. It was less often in the 40s. It was more, if there's half a dozen of you and half a dozen other geezers and someone's shouting out and giving it the big one, then it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it wasn't necessarily going looking for it, if you like. But in Liverpool, I was lucky. A mate came with me, and both the police officers, quoted from their notebooks that I'd said, I'd run across the road and said, "I'll kill you, you fucking scouse twat." And I went, as if to say, "Twat? I've never used that word in my life." So, and even there was 3 magistrates, and even the woman magistrate kind of gave a funny look, and I thought, good, she's clocked that. So when our time came, I said to my brief, I said, "Well, you ain't been a lot of good, have you? You ain't said fuck all." And he went, "No, when you go back in," he said, "it'd be your chance to say something." So I remember taking my raincoat off my watch, giving me mate the wallet, thinking, I'm in trouble here. But they let me have my say. And I just said, "Listen, Your Honours, I've lived in London all my life. I know a fair bit about London culture." I said, and both them officers are quoted out their books, what's been said. I said, "I've never used the word twat." Case dismissed. £160 cost. Now, if they'd have told the truth, you think of all the other words they could have used, but they said it the way they would say it. Yeah. So I always say to people, now, if you ever get nicked up in Liverpool, keep shouting out twat as many times as you can and then deny it. I've never fucking used a word in my life.
So what was it like for you, 80s and 90s football violence? Did you have a wife at the time? Did you have a missus at the time? Girlfriend, wife?
Yeah, still with her now. Yeah.
The lovely Lisa.
We met when we was 15.
Yeah.
She walked past the football pitch. I thought that's a bit of me, that, definitely. Didn't think I had a fucking chance. No way.
To be fair, you are punching way above your weight there, Frank.
Exactly, I know, yeah. And so apparently I was quite casual about it. And again, I've got to take our age differences into account. But we had a high fidelity record player. And I allegedly said something like, "Come down my ass if you like, play some records if you want." Not please come down my ass. Please come down my ass. And anyway, she did. She did, and it just developed from there.
Did you, in your 20s and 30s, did you find that you had an addictive personality? Whether it was booze, whether it was drugs, whether it was violence, whether it was anything else that we're going to talk about?
I didn't discover that until I wrote the book.
Okay.
Because then you write a book, you then read the book, and you almost go, fuck, is that me?
Yeah.
Is that how the world sees me?
Yeah.
Because, you're not filming yourself every day. You don't know what you're like. You can, people might tell you what you're like to a certain degree. But yeah, it took that for me to realise there's a pattern here. There's definitely a pattern. And some of that is loyalty. Some of that is if I get involved with something, I commit to it. If you employed me, I'd make a great employee.
Yeah.
Because you'd always get more out of me.
Where did that loyalty grow from?
I don't know. It could have been because of such a disjointed family life. So I was always in other people's houses. I was always in mates' houses, and was probably envious of the fact that they had a dad in the first place.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't get on with their dad. And I know some of the dads who didn't even like their own sons.
Yeah.
But they got on with me. And that meant a lot to me. So maybe that was an early stage where I recognised a certain degree of loyalty, to friends, workmates sometimes as well,
Did you find you were a different person on a Saturday than you were on a Thursday, Tuesday, Monday?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, at one stage I was a schoolkeeper. I worked in a school. You couldn't swear. You couldn't swear Monday to Friday in a school environment. So, of course, even my mates would point it out. So I was like, you ain't stop swearing. Because it was like I was making up for what I couldn't do throughout the course of the week. You was far cruder on a week, Friday night and, through the weekend. Probably just because you could.
Yeah.
What
was that feeling like for you waking up on a game day?
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was a drug. Funny enough, I don't get always give him a lot of credit, but the old Chelsea boy, Jason Mariner.
Yeah.
I think he gave the best quote about it. He said, if you're an alcoholic or a gambler or you've got a drug problem, you can go and get help.
Yeah.
He said, you can't go and get help if you're a football hooligan.
Yeah.
And in his opinion, the buzz was even better than the other three. And if you combine some of that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely a bug for me. I could lie to myself. I could lie to my girlfriend or my wife at the time, give every reason under the sun why I needed to be there. Even when I knew it wasn't right to be saying it sometimes. Yeah. All right, I might make up for it afterwards. We might go out for a meal, I might buy a present, But at the end of the day, I was desperate. And I can remember a time when Lisa actually said to me, I'd been beaten up over Tottenham. I took a liberty. We was playing Arsenal. Arsenal went through the turnstile. Some of us hadn't had enough. We followed them through. Well outnumbered. Ill kicked up again. The old bill for everyone out. I still was in the mood for fighting. I didn't want to get thrown out. So I've gone like that. The cop I went with some out. I said, I've just been beaten up by them Tottenham fuckers. Words to that effect. I should have gone. I should have left. And what I did was I went to the toilet and some of these Arsenal fellas clocked me out of the toilet.
Oh, mate.
And I was standing at a urinal, but I woke up in a cubicle and really dazed. And I thought, fuck that. I checked my ears, make sure they hadn't took the trophy, And I went to the St John's ambulance and they said, you've got concussion. In the meantime, after the game, people have obviously gone and knocked on Lisa's door and said, Frank's been hurt. And that was her lot. She went, that's it. She went, that's your lot. There's no more football. And of course, the following week, we had Manchester United away. I've got to go.
Got to go, Lisa.
I can't not go. You don't understand. I have to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. I mean, we went to see Chaz and Dave on the Friday night.
Chaz and Dave quality.
And the Dominion Tottenham Court Road. And believe it or not, we actually got in a fight.
At Chaz and Dave?
At Chaz and Dave concert.
With?
Just some people sitting behind us. It was us two other mates and their wives. And I'm singing along to Chaz and Dave, and the bloke behind me went, here, mate, any chance of fucking listening to them? I've paid to listen to them, not you. And I've turned around and went, shut up, you miserable I said, that's what they want you to do. They want you to fucking sing along. Of course, Lisa's got her nails in me leg. Anyway, half time came and we'd already met a mate of ours, the head security bloke, Colin, who used to go over Tottenham. And I come back and I can see the lights have gone down and a fella's up against the wall and someone's got their hand around his throat and he's punching him. The other fella was having a fight. I've come running down. And security came and this Colin went, he said, I don't believe it. He went, it's got to be 2,000 fucking people here. He went, and it's you three. And he took us up to the upper circle and there was 2 empty rows. And he said, he said, you can sing, dance, kick the fuck out of each other. He said, now we're all like it. And fair play to him. He took us back afterwards and he took us to the room when they was having a drink. And we had a drink with Chas and Dave and the drummer Mick. And fair play to Lisa. She said, I suppose you're going tomorrow now, aren't you? So I did get to cut a man.
We're talking here in your 20s and 30s, you were properly game. This is the 80s and 90s. Was there ever a time when you woke up and thought, I can't carry on doing this for my relationship?
Well, I'm going to have to be honest, as selfish as it sounds, no. The trouble is it becomes your identity.
Yeah.
It's how everybody knows you. Even if you're not necessarily going around asking to be recognised, whether you like it or not, that's you. That's your identity. Even now, I say to people now, it can be difficult getting a reputation. You try getting rid of it.
Yeah.
You try getting rid of it.
Yeah.
And if you're in certain company now, it can be viewed as quite muggy because other people were going out earning a pound, forming businesses, driving around in nice cars. What was you doing with your money? Your hard-earned cash. What you was doing was spending it in the pub and following Tottenham. What have you got to show for that now then? So, yeah, it was a difficult one. But I know there was plenty of times. I mean, I can remember when Lisa had quite a nice job and she was working in an office. And I'd say, you can't meet me at Kentish Town Station because I'm a bit short at the moment. I'll go to Tottenham tonight. And she'd give me the money. Yeah, well, she's had it back. Don't worry, Dodge. She's had it back over the years.
God, just on that note, fair play to your wife. We were chatting before. You've been with her. You've been married 51 years. Well, we together 51 years.
Yeah, we met in August 1972. Yeah, we met in August 1972.
What do you think was going on in Lisa's mind when you were at your height of your football violence? Knowing you're coming home,
I dread to think. Because, I've said this to people before now. When you're younger, I'm sure you probably think you're impressing them. You come back from Leeds away and you're regaling the stories of how you've had a punch-up. Like, look at me, babe, I'm an hero, ain't I? I'm a soldier. I've been up north having a fight with a load of Leeds fans. We assume, they're going, that's my hero. That's my Frank. Well, they're probably not, are they? They're probably saying, fucking idiot, what do I want to hear that for?
Yeah.
What's he telling me that for? But amongst your mates, you've convinced yourself that you're the boys, aren't you? You're the boys and girls must love you for it. And even probably later in life, there were times I might have thought, I go to certain places, people shake my hand, buy me a drink, tap me on the back. I'm thinking, this is nice. This is not only respect for me, this is respect for her as well. But I don't know how true that is. I don't know how true that is.
And what were your movements? What age were you when you started getting involved with arms and that sort of part of your life?
Well, you'd have to go back to my teens because, to give you the short version, one night a group of young people, very idealistic people, came knocking on the door and they started talking about unemployment, bad housing, health, education, which in the early 70s wasn't particularly good. And I could identify with a lot of what they were talking about. And they called themselves the Young Socialists. They invited me to a meeting. If Tottenham had been playing that night, I'd know where I would have gone. And when I got there, it turned out to be more Workers' Revolutionary Party. There was more of their banners up. So they were hardline communists, so to speak, like Trotskyites and so on. And but it all made sense to me. I was 16, something like that. And for a while, I sold their newspapers, very much what people would now describe as a socialist, a young socialist, because I cared about people, I suppose. And then my mates kind of gave me an ultimatum eventually and said, listen, Frank, what's all this about fucking politics, concentrate on the football. And for a number of years, I wasn't involved with anything politically. And then one night, a mate of mine who works down in Smithfield Market, he come in a pub, and he was right-wing, and he invited me to a meeting. Here we go again, the old addictive nature. I could identify with these people because they were more like me. They weren't middle class, because all the other lot were all tending to be middle class. I didn't even any middle class people. Mm. So I identified with working class blokes, who went to football, did the same things as me. And through the right-wing politics, I started to find out more events that were going on in Ireland, particularly Northern Ireland. And at that time, that we had, and it was at football as well. I mean, it was being discussed. There was magazines being sold. There was badges. But in London, we'd have parades taking place in London. So every January, you'd have the Troops Out parade. In August, you'd have the anti-internment parade. And these were Irish Republicans and their supporters. And at the front of the parade, you'd have bands playing, normally from Scotland. And you couldn't mistake the fact that they would be playing I, and then they'd tap the drums and then go RA. So even if he was on that parade, maybe for some pretty, legitimate claim, why would you be walking past behind a band playing IRA tunes when London was being blown up, and so on, and other parts of the mainland? So us as football blokes started to attack those parades. Every year we'd attack those two parades. We'd attack some of their meetings, pubs we knew where they sold their literature, or they went round with the collecting tins. So the old addictive nature's kicked in again, isn't it? I've now got involved with this, and the police started to know us as well, the same way they knew us from the football. And then, to put it bluntly, it was one day the penny kind of dropped and thought, well, it's not exactly equal, is it? They're blowing up our cities, and we're throwing a few punches. It's not exactly equal, is it? So people started to say, well, what are we going to do about it? We should do something about it. I said, well, what are we going to do about it? We're not paramilitaries. But we knew people in the Orange Order, Apprentice Boys, and people that we knew that were Rangers fans, Glasgow Rangers fans. And so we would start to go to their socials and different things, and we'd ingratiate ourselves. And eventually we got an introduction to somebody, and he introduced us to somebody that was the OC, which is the officer commanding of the Ulster Defence Association, which at the time was the largest loyalist paramilitary organisation in Northern Ireland. And we were thoroughly unimpressed with him. And
why?
Well, when we turned up, he stunk of vodka for a start. He was a Scots fella. And I said to this other bloke, if you think I'm putting my mates, under this bloke, that ain't happening. So what happened then was my mates then said, well, if we're going to follow anybody, we're going to follow you. And I said, well, I don't have that kind of experience, but I'm a quick learner. So this third party who'd introduced us, we could see he was very, very keen to be in charge. And he was from Northern Ireland originally. So I said, listen, he clearly wants to be the one riding the horse. I said, why don't we let him do it? We're going to do our own thing anyway. And you had to take into account, you had to be respectful that there were already other sworn-in members of the brigade. So we decided what we would do is we would supply weapons. to start off with. We had a meeting one evening. He came along and a friend opened up a catalogue and said, we can basically get any of this stuff.
What sort of stuff?
All guns, all different types of guns.
Okay.
And he said, good work, speak to Frank. And another mate went, hold on, you're in charge.
Yeah.
We take a dive, you take a dive. And after that, we knew he never had the bottle for it, basically. He wanted the title. And he lived over Lambeth in South London, and 5 of us drove over there during the week, went in a phone box, because there's no mobiles in those days. And we phoned him up and said, look, we're in a pub across the road. And 3 of the boys were at the bar, 2 of us were sitting down. He came up and he went, he said, before you say anything, he said, I'm standing down. I said, no, you're fucking not. You're being stood down. And he looks at the bar, and I'm glad he, listen, I didn't bear him any malice, really. But he knew he wasn't going to argue. And I'm glad he didn't argue, because one of the fellas actually had a sawn-off shotgun with him. We wouldn't have killed him, but he'd have been kneecapped, and then that would have made a statement to everybody else: don't fuck about with us. Well, now you've picked up the mantle, haven't you? There's no going back now, is it? You've just put yourself in the hot seat. And take into account, there were brigades in Birmingham, Liverpool, Manchester, etc., etc. And we were called the Cockney Upstarts, because we went round the country meeting people and tried to identify who were the most militant amongst them, because we couldn't understand why they never did anything. And we very quickly learnt that people have to stand in a social club or a pub telling everyone who they are, getting drinks bought for them, tap on the back and getting their hands, shaken and that. And we thought, hold on. If I'm going to be in charge, I'm going to be in charge. And it caused a lot of confrontation. I mean, 2 of us walked out of a club in the Midlands, and they all poured out the club, and one of us pulled out a Browning 9mm automatic out their overcoat and went, keep coming. Keep coming. And we thought, well, if you think we're messing about, we're not. And as I say, for a long period of time, we went all around the country. And we got rid of people who we just thought was a waste of time. But clearly it drew attention to us. The media, the police, intelligence services, military intelligence. It all, it all came on top eventually. But we know where we'd gone too far, Dodge. We'd been to Belfast numerous times. We'd been to Londonderry, Lisbon. We'd met certain people. And at the time, Sinn Féin, who was the political representatives of the IRA, were invited to London by Ken Livingstone, Jeremy Corbyn, John McDonnell, etc. All Labour MPs. So they invited them to County Hall, they invited them to the Houses of Parliament, they invited them to Islington Town Hall, etc. And we weren't happy about that at all. As far as we were concerned, they was traitors. Yeah. So on a particular visit to Belfast, excuse me, at an inner council meeting, I said, why is it that Ian Gow, who was a Conservative MP, was murdered, and yet these MPs are entertaining the people that killed him? Why are you not targeting people like them, because they're traitors? I should never have said that. Because when they asked, are you telling us that you are targeting these people? I said yes. Right. And from then on, the attention that we got, I could go out for a drive in the evening with Lisa, and we were just followed, just constantly followed. We got a hell of a lot of attention, and there were things like we went to buy some hand grenades. Now you can only use a hand grenade once, can't you? Yeah. So we said to this fellow, we've got a quarry, we want to take an amount and we want to try it. You know, we took an ex-soldier with us and he identified the packaging, you know, make sure the serial numbers looked like they was kosher. And he wouldn't let us have one, or a couple. And then someone realised one of our fellas realised they was being followed. And this bloke suddenly totally changed his mind. I said, oh, you can take as many as you like. You know, there was a lot of money dodge involved. And we thought there's something wrong here. There's something definitely wrong. We dropped it out. Years later, I was questioned by military intelligence and they brought up the subject of grenades. So we knew that was...
How much was a grenade, roughly?
Well, there was boxes of them. There was, I mean, this fella had a load of them.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know how many were in a box. I mean, a box got a bit like a crate, you know, like wooden crates. Looking back on it, I'm glad we never got them.
What were you thinking at that time?
Well, this is... the trouble is, I'll describe it like this. I do a talk now called the Treadmill, right? And I'll describe it like this. You get on the treadmill, you press the green button, and you go forward. You don't look left, you don't look right, you don't look behind you. You just keep going forward. And one day you press the red button, and you get off, and you say, how the fuck did I get here? You know, and then you start saying, well, who encouraged me to get on here? Why didn't they get on here? What were the safety mechanisms in place once you'd got on there? I mean, you can use that. You can use that example in business in general. You know, if you've got people who are looking to progress in companies, you know, they can get a bit carried away, or other people can encourage them to get on the treadmill. So it was a bit like that. I'd put myself in the hot seat. I'd called other people out and said, "You're a fucking fraud. You're not militant. You're not doing anything." Well, once you say that, you got to do something. You got to do something about it. Yeah. And if you've got other people behind you backing you up and saying, "Go on, Frank. Well done, Frank. We're the boys now. Yeah. We're the ones in charge now. We'll fucking show them." Well, you don't stop. It suddenly becomes a responsibility. You've forgotten about you. Yeah. You've forgotten about yourself. I see it now, as I said about the book. You know, any creativity I had, you know, any skills that I had that I could have applied to the working environment, or just in my in my own social time, was all wasted. Yeah. It was all focused on what I was doing, and I had warnings. I had two fellas outside the house one night, and I knew there was something wrong, and I went out the house, and I knew they followed me. Excuse me. And when they approached me, that was military intelligence.
How old are you roughly? How old roughly were you?
I was in my 30s.
You were in your 30s?
Yeah, 30s.
Okay.
And they said, we got a car around. They asked to come in the house. I said, "They ain't coming in my house." And they had a car around the corner, and I got in the back of the car. Dodge, they told me chapter and verse what I'd done the weekend before. I could not believe it. They told me I'd been in a pub on a Saturday. I'd gone to a mate's on the Sunday morning. I'd picked up 2 handguns. I'd gone back to the pub. I had the key to the private accommodation upstairs. There was 2 fellas. I opened the door, bedroom door, put the bag in. They said that the 2 guns was to kill an Irish Republican in Manchester. My job was to supply the guns. And then there was 2 ex-soldiers that were going to shoot the fella. I had people in Manchester that had done a reconnaissance, where he lived, where he worked and all that. I couldn't believe it, Dodge. I couldn't believe it. And I suddenly turned around and I went, "Well, go on, he nicked me." And one of them went, "What do you mean?" I went, "Nick me, go on, nick me." Because my thinking was, well, I'm sitting in the back of a car. I'm not in a police cell. I'm not in an holding centre. I'm not in Paddington, you know, anti-terrorist unit. So I bluffed it. And he turned around to me, wanted me to say, "Listen, Frank," he said, "we'll give you enough rope and you'll hang yourself." And 2 years later, best part of 2 years later, well, I clearly hung myself. You know.
In that period, that 2-year period, when you got the fear put up you then, did you have the fear where you think, "Oh, I've got to slow down, what's going on?"
No, that's the crazy bit.
Okay.
That's the crazy bit. I think I was way too blasé about it. Way too blasé. You know, probably believed my own hype.
Yeah.
The difference is the hype he was believing when it came to the football was one thing. You know, I make no bones about it. If people say to me, well, you was a terrorist. You know, some people would say, oh, you know, one man's a terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. I don't care what people call me. If technically what I was doing is classified as terrorism, which it was, then yes, I'm a terrorist. You know, I wouldn't queue somebody like I'm trying to think of his name now. The fellow that bombed the hotel, you know, the Grand Hotel in Brighton, Patrick McGee.
Yeah.
Right. If someone said to me, if you'd have had the same opportunity, and top Sinn Féin people, IRA people, was in a hotel and you could plant a bomb, would you have planted a bomb at that time? Yeah, I would. So I can't call him a terrorist, can I? Because at that time, I would have done exactly the same. So it's the treadmill. Once you're on it, you just.
And how many men like knocking on your shoulder, go on, Frank, you've done well there, mate. Well done, Frank. Go on, push forward. Let's go again, Frank. Let's go. How many men did you have behind you?
There was
in
a time. I mean, you got to take it into account. I mean, I'll give you a brief history. You could have back then. You can't now. It's a prescribed organisation. But back then, you could have been a member of the Ulster Defence Association. So you would have played a support role, if you like. If you was part of the military wing of it, which was the Ulster Freedom Fighters, that was a very, very small group of people, and you had a degree of autonomy. And you clearly didn't want to talk about things you were going to do to the bulk of the UDA. And then you had the LPA, which was the Loyalist Prisoners Association. So you could.
What was that one? Loyalist Prisoners
Association. Okay. So that was to support the families of Loyalist prisoners. So to assist them with, you know, getting to the prisons, etc., clothing to a certain degree, some money, because obviously there's no man, you know, bringing in a wage anymore. So you could be you didn't have to be militant to be a member of the UDA, but you were clearly militant if you was a member of the UFF, the Ulster Freedom Fighters. So you didn't want that to be too many people.
Yeah.
Because that was dangerous. That was dangerous.
Which one was more dangerous? The Freedom Fighters one?
Yeah.
Was that the next level up for you?
Yeah. That was it. That I wouldn't have had anybody in my company using that title if they weren't prepared to pull a trigger. Because I couldn't see the point. And we'd been to another Loyalist organisation's function one night. Excuse me. And they brought some weapons out. Right. They had what you call a show of strength. And I knew some of the people behind those balaclavas, and I thought, fuck off, you wouldn't even have a fight on a terrace. Never mind pull a trigger or plant a bomb. It's just no way. And we swore blind we would never, ever do that. And then on one particular night, we had a function. Wasn't much point in me putting on a balaclava because everybody knows my voice. But two other people came out. So I was still dressed up the same, but I just didn't have the balaclava on. I still had the combat, you know, wear on. The two fellas either side of me who were wearing balaclavas, who clearly weren't going to speak, they both had handguns. That's telling everybody in front of me, you know that these two people would use these.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have them on the stage with me.
Yeah.
So that was the difference. So you didn't, and there were others, but obviously you didn't expose it all in one go. You know, on another occasion, you'd have two different fellas or three or four other fellas. You never showed your true strength because there might have been someone in that audience, you know, in that company who's on the phone later on to the old bill saying, definitely half a dozen of them, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, you had to keep that.
So you're talking about there on stage, showing strength of two fellas in front of you wearing ballies and you sat behind them as the main man. What were you doing on that stage?
Well, you were recruiting for a start and you was getting support. You know, you had to pay for stuff. You know, you had to pay for weapons. and you had to pay for prisoners, prisoners' families. So, you obviously charged a ticket. You had raffles, you had auctions. You had to try to get money, and you had to try and recruit as well.
How easy was it to recruit someone like that? You being one of the top
Too
faces
easy.
at Tottenham,
Too
was there
easy.
other clubs who would all come on board and say we're part of this?
I don't say this very often because I don't like to be derogatory to anybody else that's put a commitment into it over the years. But there's one particular football team, right, who always get accredited as being the most loyalist, shall we say, and that's Chelsea. At the height of when I was in charge, I never swore one Chelsea fan into the Ulster Defence Association. Certainly didn't swear him into the Ulster Freedom Fighters, that's for sure. But that's the perception, because Chelsea used to go to Rangers quite a lot and go over for the 12th of July, which is a big day in Belfast. So they've always been accredited, Chelsea. So if I'm in a cab in Belfast and somebody has a London accent, they go, Chelsea. And I have to go, fuck off, mate. No, I'm not Chelsea. Yeah. I'm fucking Tottenham. Because the same people that took over in London were my mates from Tottenham.
Yeah.
That's how we knew each other. That's how we trusted each other, because we'd had each other's backs at different times. We've been at court with each other. We've been to weddings, christenings, family occasions. We trusted each other. But I don't say that very often. I don't, because I try not to define it as a football thing. But it's not a bad thing at this stage to mention originally it was us. Now, by the same token, I do know a lot of good Chelsea boys, who I would class as loyalists. Not paramilitaries, loyalists.
What's the difference, paramilitary and loyalist?
Well, because a loyalist, you can just support the loyalist cause. You don't have to take an oath and join an illegal paramilitary organisation. So,
okay.
It's you don't have to break the law to be a loyalist. You can be a political loyalist.
So you said that you got to take the oath to be in the paramilitary.
Yeah.
Explain a little bit more on that.
Well, generally speaking, you have a Bible and you have an handgun, and then somebody else reads that and you repeat what they say. And I took that oath very seriously. Very, very serious. But partly because I'm a man on the Bible for a start. Although I wasn't the most... I'm religious. I'm my own private person when it comes. I'm not evangelical. I won't try and convince you of my religious beliefs. But I know I've got a kind of spiritual thing going on. I mean, I went to Sunday school. I went to Sunday school when I was a kid, so I've clearly retained some of that. But yeah, I took an oath and I meant it. I meant the same as the oath to my wife was. I meant it, and still mean it.
So if someone took the oath, what have they got to do for your trust for them to take the oath and follow through on everything?
Well, you can start off quite simply. You can ask them to store weapons. You can ask them to go and pick the weapons up. You could ask them to transport the weapons. And then you just have to know someone personally. You have to get on it. Look, if you were going to go on a piece of work, so to speak, and you was going to go and rob a security van years ago, you'd only have the right people around you, wouldn't you? All right, you might have someone on board on the say-so of somebody else. But generally speaking, you'd want your own team, wrapped around you. So that's what it would be. So I had to work out, if we say we're going to go and do this, are they really going to do it? Now, I'll give you a very quick example. In the 80s, down at King's Cross, you had all the brasses there and the drugs. Yeah. And the people that ran it all were the black fellas down there, right? Mainly the rasters. Yeah. They was running all of that, right? They're dripping in gold, drugs on them, and they got loads of money. Let's go and rob them. So I said to her, mate, I've got a lot of time for, been a lot of tight situations with him. And I said, right, we're going to go out in a week. We're going to go down across and we're going to rob him. I wasn't interested in the drugs. I don't do drugs. It's not my thing. But I'd have the money and I'll take the jewellery out of them. We're driving down Pancras Way And I turned to him and I went, yours is under the seat. And he went, what do you mean? I said, your thing is under the seat. What thing? I said, what do you think we're going to do? Get out of the car, walk up to them and go, oh, give us all your money, give us all your jewellery. You know, when they've probably got a fucking bayonet on them that big or machete or whatever it would have been back in those days, if not a gun. I said, it's a gun. Oh, fuck. Soon as I saw that slight bit of apprehension, went down to the next set of traffic lights, turned right and came back. I thought, fuck that. Now, that's told me something about him. Yes, he come to Belfast with me regularly, come to Scotland with me, Glasgow, etc. I'd been to all these different functions, attack parades previously. So to all intents and purposes, he was a great loyalist. But he wasn't a paramilitary. That's the subtle difference.
Okay.
That's taught me a lesson now. How if he can't even think how he was about to achieve this without me telling him, there's no way was a gun ever going to be put in his company again. No way. No way.
How many men did you have who were game?
I'm not going to tell you that.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you that for security reasons. There's as much as mine. There would have been enough to do damage, just put it that way. There'd have been enough to do some damage.
And when you talk about damage, what was your ultimate goal?
Well, I'll take a shortcut, right? I'll take a short. Well, it was clearly that you was on one side or the other, right? You were either for United Ireland or you was for keeping Northern Ireland British. And I was British. And the people I've got to know, and people who'd been shot, blown up, gone to prison, all wanted to be British. And that was good enough for me. I'm British. I'm very proud to be British. So as far as I was concerned, they're the people I was fighting for, you know. What I will say, I'm going to jump forward a little bit here to prison. And on a particular visit, I'd been Cat A from day one.
Before you get there,
yeah, go on.
Before we get to the prison bit, that period, that 2-year period when you got the tug saying, right, got your own rope there. Within that 2-year period, when was the time when you actually got nicked? Where were you? And what did you get nicked for?
I was arrested in a car park at the back of a pub in Birmingham, Perry Bar, and I had 7 handguns and 240 rounds of ammunition in a bag. And I met a fella from Belfast, and as we went to put it in the boot of his car, and as we went to walk away, 2 fellas were walking towards us with like overcoats or long coats. And I was just about to say, get out the fucking way. Because we were on the sharing the same. I was about to say, open up their coats, didn't I? Got Eckler and Koch machine guns around their necks. And cars just come out of people in bushes, just get on the floor. And I got on the floor. I went to see where the other fella was, and I got smashed in the cheekbone with an handgun. And it fucking hurt. So my natural instinct was to fucking done, was to get up, and then of course I had a machine gun pointed at the back of my head and clearly laid back down again. You know.
Bloody hell.
We obviously went to the police station and landed up in Winston Green, category A.
How long did you get?
I'll get to that bit. I will get to that bit, but this will answer the other question. When I got to Winston Green, the screw said to me, welcome to Winston Green. He said, the last bastion of the POA, which is the Prison Officers Association. And boy, was he proud of it. And they treated you like a dog. I mean, this was 93.
Yeah.
I mean, freezing cold cell, you know, slopping out, 1 shower a week if you was lucky. Phone calls had to be were recorded. No gym, no canteen, no church. You could do fuck all. No association. They broke all the rules basically because they could. So it was when Lisa first came to see him, it was behind the screen. She brought the girls. I said, don't ever do that again because you just go like a lunatic.
How old were the kids then? Roughly?
10 and 5 maybe. Lisa might be able to correct me on that. And I just said, don't bring them again. It's not good for them and it's not good for us. Eventually we got an open visit, which I say an open visit, we're sitting like this. There's 2 screws sitting there.
Yeah.
So it's like being in a soap opera.
Yeah.
And I basically said to Lisa, I'm glad I got caught.
Mm.
And she went, what? How can you want to get caught? And I said, well, babe, where do you think this was going?
Mm.
You can't be in charge. You can't have guns wrapped around you and not use them. And I think she said something like, are you telling me you'd have shot someone? And to this day, I don't think I answered. I kind of went, sort of shrugged as if to go, well, yeah, you know. But I meant that. I was glad I got caught.
Did you ever shoot anyone?
No, but it wasn't for the want of trying. It wasn't for that's the thing, it wasn't for the want of trying. So it was just as well I got caught when I did, because it was only going to get worse. It was, we'd actually planned something earlier in the year, and it was only because the intervention, by accident, that somebody very, very prominent, and it's in the book, so was going to be assassinated that day.
Who was that?
That was Ken Livingstone. He was at the head of this parade. We knew he was going to be there, and there was no mobiles.
Yeah.
And we went all around the country getting people that we knew to turn up on the day and attack the parade. So that during the course of the attack, there'd be so much mayhem going on that the gunman would get close to him, shoot him, get away. There was someone on a motorbike, etc. So this is the kind of lengths that where you're at now. And he wasn't the only one. There was two others.
Who were they?
That was Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell.
And why did you want to assassinate Jeremy Corbyn?
It was because, as far as we was concerned, they were supporting the Irish Republican movement. You know, they was making him welcome in London when we thought it was taking the piss. You're blowing us up, and yet you're welcoming these people. You're calling them Sinn Féin. Mm. We knew they was IRA. It's like saying, Jerry Adams still insists he was never in the IRA. Oh, come on, please give us some credit. Other people admitted that they were, but he clearly couldn't say he was, because he was dealing with governments over the years, so he couldn't say he was. But that's the lengths we've gone to. We ain't fucking about no more. Trying to prove ourselves, I suppose, on the one end, but we couldn't have thought it through, could we? Mm. How many years would you have got for murdering an MP or conspiracy? Fucking we'll be sitting here now.
When we're sitting here now, no.
When we're sitting here now.
No.
But this is what I say about the treadmill. Once you get on it, once you accept that responsibility, once you call other people out for not doing things, well,
you've got to do it yourself and be the leader. Yeah.
You've got to do it. And I say it's only since doing the book, and I'll go, fuck me, is that me?
Yeah.
Is that me? I kind of get the football bit, but when it gets to that bit, I think it's absolutely crazy.
What was your profile? Did your profile raise when people knew at the football you're also involved in this as well?
To a certain degree. And I was also welcomed by a lot of other football people. That's why there's certain West Ham fellas I know now, and, Millwall, Portsmouth, Rangers. It does. Because otherwise they'd be wanting to knock the shit out of you. But they're not going to do that because they respect you because of the other thing that you're doing.
How much of your ego got in the way of all of this? The football violence and then everything that's gone through?
No, it must have been. I can't... Look, I worked with a fellow who went on to be my governor, and him and a mate wanted to come to Belfast. He was intrigued. He'd never been. And we had some friends from the West Midlands, different places. So there was between 20 and 30 of us. And we went to a function in what was an old cinema. So it was a big old place, could hold 300-400 people upstairs. And about 10 to 10, a fella come over, tapped me on the shoulder. He went, Frank, give it 10 minutes. And I went, all right, okay. As soon as 10 o'clock came, all the lights went down. Blokes walked towards the double doors, right? And Simply the Best came on. And suddenly the doors opened and 12, 15 balaclavaed, heavily armed men, you know, M60s, you know, the big bullet belts over the shoulders and all that.
Yeah.
Marched and the place went mental. There was people up on the tables. The place went absolutely
So they come
mental.
in?
Yep. And they all went up on the stage. While everyone's watching this, I've crept away, gone round the back, and then there's some steps going up onto the stage. And then the chap who was in charge of that whole area, South East Antrim, it was in Rathcoole, good friend of mine, Gruggy, he got killed eventually in a feud by another friend of mine, which that's what happens in a feud, unfortunately. Yeah. He went up on the stage to address everybody, and he said a few words, and then I came up and then stood next to him. And I'd be lying if I never, you know, if I said that's not intoxicating. You got 12, 15 everyone men behind you. You got 300-400 people in front of you. The bloke I worked with was just sitting there with his mouth open.
Yeah.
Because he only knew me in work.
Yeah.
And he suddenly seen me up on that stage. But I always say I like to think I acted responsibly because I had the power to have people killed. You know, I had the power to have people kneecapped, but I was never a bully. I'd put the wind up somebody, or I'd get somebody else to put the wind up somebody and to say, look, yeah, and I hope you've learnt your lesson. But yeah, there must have been a degree of ego there. There must, even if I wasn't conscious of it at the time, because I was focused. I was focused on what I don't think I had a lot of time to think about a lot of things, to be quite honest.
Well, that's the next bit I was going to say. If you're going to footy, home and away games, and you're doing this throughout the whole week, how do you have time to with your wife and your kids and normal life?
Well, we've had this discussion. I'm sure you know you can imagine plenty of times, and I think Lisa does give me credit in the sense that I've always been a family man. So we always still went to the coast. We went to castles. We went for days out. Even my daughters will give me credit for that. You know, they'll say, "No, Dad, you was always good in that respect." Looking back on it, I can't believe how much time I did spend out of the house, to be quite. Okay, I did. The football tailed off. The football did become secondary, if I'm honest.
What, mid-30s here?
Yeah. So if Tottenham was playing on a Saturday, but I had to go a bit of business to sort out in a social club in the Midlands or somewhere,
that would take over.
That would take priority.
Okay.
Yeah, that would definitely take priority. And again, I suppose there's this what I said earlier on about the football. My mum blamed Lisa for my plight, so to speak. Right? She said to Lisa one day, "I blame you for this because you've let him have too much freedom." If at any point Lisa had turned around to my mum and said, "Oh, well, I'm not having him doing that," she'd go, "You can't tell my Frank what to do."
That's mum's for you, isn't it?
Mum's,
yeah, of course.
It's okay, she apologised.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually she did apologise for.
How do you think, sitting in your early 60s, how do you think, like, what you might have put your wife through mentally, knowing that, you're going to come back? What are you getting up to? Did she know everything? No, okay.
No, I think there was an element because if you're going to football, home and away, you're going to Europe, you're with the boys. And don't forget some of the fellas that on the paramilitary side were the same fellas. Yeah. So if I sit to Lisa, I'm going to Glasgow, she's just it's going with his nutty mates to Glasgow, going to watch Rangers.
Yeah.
She doesn't know I'm meeting
what you're up to,
She doesn't know I'm meeting her.
Yeah.
She doesn't know that I'm organising a shipment to go over from Scotland to go over to Northern Ireland.
Shipment of
guns. She's not aware of that. I mean, people to this day will say, "Well, she must have known," but wasn't something you sat down in front of the telly and discussed
yeah.
very often.
Do you think she knew deep down, but just didn't want to say anything, just let you get on with it because she was madly in love?
I'm a very lovable bloke. So yeah, was that?
But do you know what I mean?
I did turn my head left and see what she's at. She's looking.
She's on your case right now.
She's put her head down. Oh, we've always had a strong bond. There's no.
But do you think she turned a blind eye to it? Do you think she knew more than you thought she knew?
Possibly. Possibly. And again, that scenario where you think girls, you know, or your wife, you know, you're one of the boys at the football.
Yeah.
Well, she would come to an occasional social event, right, that we'd organised in London. So if dozens of people are coming up, shaking my hand, tapping me on the back, wanting to be seen in my company, I must have thought at some stage, I bet she's really proud of me.
Yeah.
You know, she can see I'm in charge here. I'd be very surprised if I didn't think that. I can't give you an occasion when it happened, but I'd be very surprised. I'd have to be pretty modest not to think that I must have thought that at some stage that I was impressing her. You know.
When did it all come to a halt for you personally? The moment you got nicked, did you be sitting in your prison cell thinking, I've got to stop this, or were you still at it in prison?
Yeah, because here's the irony, right? What can prove how committed you are better than now becoming a loyalist prisoner? Or what people would call a loyalist prisoner award.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate badge. That's the ultimate badge. You sit in a room now with people who've done time as a loyalist prisoner. You don't have to talk to each other. You don't have to big each other up.
Yep.
There is just an instant mutual respect because you know what you went through. You know what each other's families went through. You know, you know that you missed your child's first day in secondary school. You missed birthdays. You missed anniversaries. You
funerals
missed
a lot, yeah.
Things you're never ever going to get back. Yeah. So you kind of know that. So no, when I went into prison, you got to make up your mind. Am I going to walk around with my tail between my legs, or I'm going to say, well, this is what I am? And don't forget, there's a lot of Irish people.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't anti-Irish, but I was certainly anti-IRA. And I remember when I got convicted, this very smart security officer come up to me and he went to me, well, you know where you're going there, son, didn't you? I said, no, where am I going? He said, you're going to Long Lighting. Now, I knew Long Lighting had at least half a dozen IRA prisoners in there. And I went to him, is that right? And he said, yeah. And he put a big smirk on his face. I said, let me tell you something. He said, you see, when I get there, I said, the first one of them I see, I'm going to fucking do them. And when I'm up in front of the governor, I'm going to quote your name. And he took the smile up of his face, didn't he? But I meant it.
Yeah.
But I meant it. Because you think I'm walking into that environment and have myself as a victim.
Yeah.
That's something I promised myself. There's no way I was going to be a victim. And I wasn't going to go in the numbers. There were people that come up to me and basically said, oh, you know, how much was you selling the guns for? Well, they're villains, aren't they? So they're doing what they do is for £1 note. And I went, what are you talking about? Wasn't selling the guns. And they went, what? They couldn't understand. As they got to know me over a course of time and saw, I mean, I'd get sent craft work from the maze, you know, in Belfast, and I'd put it on the wall and people would come and go, fucking hell, where'd you get that from? Or how'd you know him? And I say, well, it's just the way it is, you know, it's just the way it is. And most of the screws were fairly respectful as well. They gave me a little bit of leeway. Some, I mean, others were just dogs. But
did people have the fear of you and Nick? Do you reckon?
I think to a certain degree, but I didn't exploit that dodge. What I did was, I don't smoke, and you get 2.5 ounces of Old Oban every week. So I very quickly learned that I can sell that, and people, you know, it's double bubble, but they're not going to give you that. So they'll give you phone cards. I learned how to exploit that, if you like. So I became the person to come to for the tobacco, the phone cards, cash. I'd buy budgie cages, trainers. This chain around my neck is from Winston Green.
Yeah.
You won't want to see the rest of it, Dodge.
Go on.
You won't want to see what's hanging on the end of it.
I'll leave it out. It's the Tottenham cockerels. I saw you took your Tottenham hat off when you come in here in this West Ham shrine.
I was trying to be discreet. Yeah, so I quickly learned that exerts a certain amount of control on a wing because you're the man to go to. And I was quite generous. If there was people I knew had nothing, I'd say, go and cook us a meal. You know, I'd help, but here's a couple of phone cards and have a meal yourself.
Yeah.
So you become an integral part of that. There'll be people there that can't stand you, but they want your tobacco.
Yeah.
They need those phone cards. And the only time it went wrong was one particular night, two black fellas came to the door. It was about 10 to 8, and I'd gone to the urn and got a jug of hot water. And they pushed their way through the door. They kind of robbed me, and they obviously. So it was just an automatic thing. You know, I didn't put sugar in it or anything. It wasn't, preconceived. And I just launched the water. I thought, fuck it. And I launched the water over them. There was about that much left in the bottom of the jug, and they ran off fucking screaming, and a screw came along. He went, what's happening, Frank? I went, God, I don't believe it. I'm trying to get in me Peter light. And I said, and fucking bumped into me, and water's gone up. And he went, give me an old-fashioned look as if to go, yeah, all right.
Yeah, right.
But I very quickly learned you can't get nicked for having hot water. You can get nicked for throwing it over someone deliberately, but you can't get nicked for it. So all these people walking around with homemade tools, they can get nicked for that. So the sooner I let it be known, you come near me, you're going to get a fucking jug of hot water over here. Excuse me. That happened a couple of times. People wouldn't pay their debts. I didn't mention how many times in the book because my wife's got to read the book. You know, and other people, I don't really want them to know. But it became a necessity at times. And in the end, I was going to church, and an old black boy I used to go to church with, and he said to me one day, Frankie, he said, you carry on like this, they're going to call you Frank the Baptist. And it just stuck. It just stuck.
What was the thought process for you when you were in Nick to go, when I come out, I want to stop, I want to calm down, I want to live a different lifestyle? When you come out, what lifestyle did you carry on with, or what lifestyle did you turn to?
Well, while I was away, I joined the industrial cleaning course. I passed every certificate you could get. I took the assessor's course so I could train other inmates. And I got rewarded for that, and I thoroughly enjoyed doing that. So the plan was to start my own business or get into that side of it. Special branch were waiting for me on the day I came out, offered to set me up in business, which I told them to fuck off. They got there an hour before Lisa and my mate came to pick me up.
Why did the special branch want to set you up in business? To do what?
Because they wanted me to get back involved and keep them informed of what's going on. Because people were going to trust me. You know, I hadn't grassed anybody up. So they wanted information. And they actually, a couple of weeks later, they actually came, not the same two, they came round the house, doorbell went, and I went upstairs and looked out the window, two fellas standing there, clipboards, making out there like the council or somebody. Lisa went to the door, we need to speak to Frank, he's not here, she says. No, we need to speak to Frank. She's not, because I'm telling her to say I'm not there. No. Well, of course, the old trick, there's been a threat on his life. Well, I don't want to worry about that, do I? So now I come down the stairs. Can we come in? I said, you've got 10 minutes, something like that. Come in, one of them went to sit on the settee. I said, oh, don't make yourself fucking comfortable. You ain't staying that long. You know, cheeky fucker. Anyway, I'm not making this up, Dodge. They wanted to keep me on a payroll, right, on a monthly payroll, and they wanted to give me money to go and buy guns. And the proviso was that I don't let those guns get into the hands of anybody that might use them. But the idea was to say that other people would say, fuck, you know, look at Frank. He's come out, you know.
He's back at it. Yeah.
So people are going to confide in me, People are going to trust me, and that's what they banked on. And I just said, go on, fuck up, your time's up.
Wow.
I got out on a Wednesday. On the Sunday, we went for a drink with Lisa's mum and dad. And on the way back from the pub, we came through the local market, and I think Lisa went into a shop to get a tin of peas, carrots, whatever it was. And the pub opposite, the door was slightly ajar. And I could hear somebody singing, "And when this war is over," Irish fella singing this. And I went fucking potty. Ran across the road, kicked the fucking door. I was more annoyed because it was English people that I knew that was in the pub letting this geezer stand up on the fucking stage singing this IRA song. Right. As I went to the door, I said, "I'll give you when the fucking war's over." And a fella that I knew went to me like that, nodded his head, and I turned around and there was poor Lisa standing on the other side of the road. I hadn't even been out a week. Not even a week. And I thought, fuck. So I definitely had to eat humble pie for that. But I hadn't changed, Dodge.
Yeah.
I knew I hadn't changed. And I tried to convince myself that I would walk away. And I didn't walk away. Okay, I formed other things. I got more political. I started to do some community work that benefited people that I knew in Northern Ireland. I was going into communities where they were still being threatened. Even when we were being told there was peace, they weren't getting any peace. They couldn't go and buy a loaf of bread and a pint of milk because they get attacked by the other community. We weren't getting told that on the news.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, can't keep shooting everyone, can you? You can't blow everyone up, can you? We've got to find something else to do with these people. So we came back, had a function, raised some money. We got a 40-foot container. We had it converted into a shop. So they didn't have to leave the estate. They could, and someone got a job, running it. So the mindset did change gradually. There's other places we went. We had a fun day for the kids.
How long did you get?
Well, this is the bit I left out. One of my codees walked after 6 weeks because they couldn't prove what was in there. But the only person that could get him time would have been me. And I said, "You keep saying you don't know what's in that bag. They can't prove it."
Yeah.
So he walked up. I said, 5.5, 6 weeks. The Belfast fella absolutely bottled it, right, big time. And that was proved later on. So when it came to the day, I was going guilty. And there was a good reason why I wanted to go guilty. I wanted it over and done with. Because I was more worried about conspiracy charges to other things. And every time they said all the branches coming up the speech, I was thinking, fuck it, hell. I mean, there was something about sand that was in the boot of my car. And they were saying that there'd been explosives in the boot of the car. So, I'm getting more and more, fuck, what are they going to say next? Go guilty, let's get this over and done with. But he was going not guilty, and he had every chance of getting off. So on the day, I'm going up for sentencing, he's going up for trial, and they spooked him up. And he came into the holding cell and went to me, did you know this carried a life sentence? And I said, yeah. And he said, how long have you known that? I said, from the beginning. And I looked at him and I went, well, thank fuck you didn't know. Because I dread to think what you'd have said. Anyway, they've done a deal. He's going to get 2 to 3 years if he goes guilty. We go up, you've got the press, you've got the law students, and the old judge, Judge Rougier, he says, he's basically let the court know that I'm the bad one in all of this, right? He said things like, if you lay down with dogs, you've got to expect to pick up a few fleas. You're looking down both barrels of a double-figured sentence. And I thought, fuck that. That's 10 to start up with, isn't it? I thought I'd be lucky if I got 8 and do 4. So all of a sudden he's turned around. I won't say the fella's name, but he went, I didn't realise at the time he was letting the press and the law students, that his hands were tied. Yeah. So I got explained to me afterwards. So he said, I sentence you to 30, I thought you're fucking joke, months to him.
Yeah.
30 months. So that was his 2.5 years.
Yeah.
He'd done 9 months on remand, was worth 18 months. He
Yeah.
had 6 months left to
Yeah.
do, basically. They took him away, and then the court just went quiet, and I thought, fuck it, here we go. 10, 12, 15, what? And he said, I'll sentence you to 5 years. So I just stood there. And this court screw grabbed my arm. He went, coming in. And I went, what are you fucking doing? Because I'm waiting for another lump.
Yeah.
He went, just give you 5 years. And I went, yeah, and the fucking rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as I turned my head, he was picking his papers up.
To close the
judge.
book.
And there's some pals in the gallery putting their thumbs up like that, you know. And I went downstairs and I passed his barrister. And his barrister said to me, you are a very lucky man. I said, how'd you work that out, mate? I'm going to prison for 5 years. He went, you know. So I knew he'd told him everything. Yeah. Anyway, I came to a little office, my brief's there and his junior. They both had a bit of paper. And one turned it over and it had 10 written on it. And the other one had 12. And I said, how's that work out then? And they said, what the judge was trying to explain to the press and the law students was he cannot give you a disproportionate sentence. Otherwise, we could have an appeal. So he's giving you twice as much. So if he'd have got 5, I'd have got 10.
Yeah.
Because he did the deal and went guilty.
Yeah.
He only got 2.5 years. So the most he could give me was 5.
Happy days.
And the irony is, as crazy as I thought
Yeah.
she was, Lisa says, with a bit of luck, I think you're going to get 5. And it was 5.
5. What'd you do? 2.5?
Yes, I've done 2.5 out of that. Yeah, I've done 2.5 out of that. So.
What's your world like today? After all the madness you've gone through, when you come out, did you carry on any madness? And when did the madness stop for you? At what age were you?
I'm not totally sure it's even stopped, to be quite honest.
But it must have calmed down.
I isolate myself. Let's put it this way. There's things I isolate myself from.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, if you don't want to get in trouble at football,
Yeah.
don't go football.
Yeah.
Just don't go, right? So there's other scenarios where I just say, well, you know what? Don't be tempted to be in that environment again and be drawn in, because the old loyalty bit will be drawn on again, and I'm still very, very loyal. What I will say now is the loyalty to my family.
Yeah.
That's the striking difference now. So is the old fire in the belly still? Not that there's any need for it now, thankfully, because of the peace process. Technically, there should be no need for it now. It should be politics. You discuss things now. And even I've learned to do that a lot better than I once would have. A good friend coined the phrase many years ago, and he said, nobody was exclusively right and nobody was exclusively wrong. So if you can meet in the middle and have a conversation, better for that. So that's what I would say to younger people. I understand if your older brother or brothers, your dad, your uncles, grandfather, whatever it be, if they've all been loyalist prisoners and they're all respected in your street and they're all respected in your community, what young man would not want the same kudos?
Yeah.
He feels almost obliged to do that, to carry on that family tradition. Whereas I would say, son, I understand exactly how you feel and why you would want to do it. Go and get yourself a career.
Yeah.
Come back and help your community out. And hopefully the fella who you perceive as your enemy on the other side of the wall or the peace line, hopefully he's thinking the same way. You know, you throw a petrol bomb, you're fucked.
Yeah.
You know, that's your future over and done with, you know.
So if you, back in the day, if you threw a petrol bomb and got nicked, how long would you get for that?
I don't know, probably not a lot back then, because it happened so often.
Yeah.
It was almost, I think, God, must have been so many kids when they were growing up back then in the 70s and the 80s. And it was a natural thing to them. That was a rite of passage almost. And if they were seen to be doing that, or filling the bottles or whatever, then they'd be recruited at a very young age.
Yeah.
Well, can you look after this?
Yeah.
Can you carry that from A to B? And then it kicks in then, doesn't it? The ego, the trust.
Have you ever, in the last 10 years, had the fear of losing your life?
Yeah. Because I look at it like this, right? If I have to take into account that there are still dissident Republicans, right, who don't agree with the peace process, still want Brits out, still when they can, still plant bombs, shoot police officers in Northern Ireland, right? I'm not naive enough to think that there are still not active militant Republicans on the mainland. If I was the same age as me, if I was an up and coming dissident Republican and I wanted to prove myself to the Republican movement, I'd be a good target. I would be a legitimate target because I've been a loyalist prisoner. So I am conscious of it. I don't take it for granted. I still look at car number plates. I'm still very conscious that, the way I go to work, different things. And that's gone on for a long time. But I'm not going to cry about it. I'm not going to cry about it because I would have done the same years ago. But yeah, I am conscious of it. There's no doubt about that. We'll see what happens, won't we?
Moving on to your book, Frank. The book you got here, Left, Right, Loyalist, from one extreme to another. When was that written?
Oh, it's got to be 5 years ago, maybe 6 years now. It actually ends in 1996. And I'm halfway through writing another book.
We're going to call that?
I'm not sure yet, but it's obviously going to be far more reflective. It will finish off the militant side of it and then a different journey, a different way I've looked at things, summed things up. When you asked about family, there's not a day that goes by that I do not feel guilty.
Yeah.
And I say this, and I have to be careful here because I could feel the tears welling up, all right? If either of my daughters came to me and said, thanks to you, Dad, or whatever, it would kill me.
Yeah.
It would utterly destroy me. And thank God they've never done that. That's my biggest fear.
Yeah.
That if I'm not scared of anyone,
yeah,
in a sense, that's my biggest fear. If we ever, me and my oldest girl have some blinding arguments. Lisa will attest to that. We have some blinding arguments. And I'm really, really surprised she hasn't done me with that one. Really, and I appreciate that she hasn't done it. I know she wouldn't mean it, but I would dread it happening.
Yeah.
I don't think I could live with that, to be honest.
Before we finish up here, have you got any final words for your two daughters and your wife?
I do say in the book that, obviously how much I love them and, I appreciate them obviously putting up with me and what I've put them through. I can't change it. I can't wipe it clean. I can still try and be the best husband I can be, the best dad. I've got 3 beautiful granddaughters. I don't intend doing anything I shouldn't do, let's put it that way. That's done. That's done and dusted. I've still got the same view. I'm still British, still very proud of British. I still want Northern Ireland to remain British. That's not going to change. But that's politics. I'll sit down and fight my corner over that. But my family can sit safe and know that, in fact, there's no nonsense with anything.
Yeah.
Nothing. If there was a bit of hooky gear around the corner now and someone said, no.
Yeah.
And in all fairness, since prison, I've never been in trouble.
Yeah.
I've sailed close to the wind on the same subject, but no, I couldn't expect Lisa to come up and sit in front of me in a prison again. No way. No way. There's no way that's happening. And she's always been supportive of what I've done over the years, and she still is to this day. And we're not getting any younger.
Yeah. What are you today? 64.
I'm 66.
66.
She's 67. you know, and I know I'm a very lucky man. That is something I do know. I am a very, very lucky man.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of things I want to do. And I know how much time I've wasted.
Yeah.
Everything I've done has been for the wrong things. Appreciated by everybody else. I've done podcasts. I had my own podcast for a while. Frankly speaking, with Frank Portinari, I thoroughly enjoyed that. Met some very, very interesting people. Some of them who kind of left a lasting impression on me. I think mainly now it's health.
Yeah, mate.
It's health. I'm so conscious. I went back to the gym about 5 weeks. Following week, I caught shingles.
Yeah.
You know, okay, getting over that, you suddenly get
Isn't it funny how
a stinking
life,
cold.
Life, you go back, you've lived this mad life, and all of a sudden you're like reflecting, which we spoke about, reflecting, stopping and getting off the treadmill and having a look, thinking, Jesus, where's all the years gone for doing that? And how important your health and your family are in your
as I say, I can walk into company now. I can walk into a certain company now, and I'll still get them drinks bought for me.
Yeah.
I'll still get the pat on the back. Is that what I want?
Yeah.
I appreciate it. There's kids I know in their 20s and 30s, you know, when I go certain places, I also have their photo done with me.
Yeah.
I find that quite cringeworthy. That's not what I did it for. It wasn't for that, lads. You know, it's far too... You know, the effect it had on my family, you'll never know.
Yeah.
You'll never understand. Yeah, you've gone home tonight with a nice little photo. You're going to put it on Facebook tomorrow. Fair enough. But it means fuck all to me. It means absolutely nothing. And now, I've got to focus. I don't. Listen, my 3 granddaughters are innocent, right? Well, the oldest one, I think she does know what happened in the past. The other 2 don't really know what's what. So, what's my legacy going to be to them? How are they going to describe their grand? I know my mates would describe me, and a lot of blokes would be quite content with that.
How do you think your mates would describe you?
Fucking mad, probably. I think they mean it in quite a complimentary way.
Yeah.
But I'd like to think probably top of the list was loyal, for a start. But yeah, like I've said before, it's all right getting a reputation. You try getting rid of it.
Yeah, it's stuck, isn't it?
So I'm a member of the Professional Speaking Association. So the people I mix with there are so far removed from... So it's almost like schizophrenia. You don't know who am I today? Which bloke am I today? Who am I representing today?
Are you happy today?
I don't know. That's a very pertinent question. That very pertinent question. I can get depressed very quickly. Now, whether that's guilt, frustration, I don't know, but it happens more frequently. That could be because of health. Knowing the age that I am, there is that desperation. Am I going to have time to leave a legacy, security for my family? That's a pressure, if I'm honest. That is a pressure, and I've got to come to terms with that. But, you know, I like to think I've still got a little bit of... I don't give up easy, let's put it that way.
No, I can see that.
I just need to get on the right treadmill.
Yeah.
I've got to identify the treadmill and go, right, now press the green button, fucking keep going. Mind you, I'm so unfit, I'll probably fall up with it.
Frank, I've really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Thanks for giving me the opportunity as well.
I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for your honesty.
Yeah, that's okay. No, that's good.
Really, really enjoyed it. This is something I've never gone down a route of this before, but to hear this from the horse's mouth has been quite an experience for the last hour and 40 minutes. I wish you all the best.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I really do wish you all the best, and I wish your wife all the best as well, Lisa, for standing by you. What a loyal woman she is, and wife to you. Amazing.
Well, I've always described her as my guardian angel.
Yeah, I can see that.
She's always been my guardian angel, and
very lucky, mate.
I fear anyone upsetting her. because I just dread to think what I would do. I think you got a good idea.
I wouldn't like to think on that one, but after
but no, she is. People can throw it around. Oh, she's my world. She's this. She's that. I just could not imagine life
without
her.
Yeah, great.
Cooking can improve a little bit, but
Frank,
top man,
thoroughly enjoyed that.
Thanks very much.
Good man.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Good luck to you.
Ta-ra, mate.